Hello, everyone, and welcome to a super episode of the Careers Chat podcast. And today, I think both Siobhan and I are super excited because we have an amazing guest, and we're really privileged to be talking to Lee Griffin, who is Academic Director, Postgraduate Taught programs at the University of Warwick, but he also leads on academic integrity within the university. So watch out, it's an amazing episode and you are privileged to be listening to Lee too.
Definitely.
Welcome, Lee.
Good morning, thank you.
Okay, so Shiv, would you like to have a start and start with your first question?
It's always good to see Lee, and it's always good to have somebody that knows a lot about this subject. I think Konstantina and I were having a conversation about a wonky article that we will put into the episode details about the impact of AI. And I think we were concerned about the concern that students were having around this. Our concern was that it was like 1 in 10 of the people who had been sort of spoken to had changed their career paths because of AI concerns. I mean, Lee, what do you think are the ways that you can future-proof yourself in this growing AI world?
That's a great question. Part of the problem is I don't know where the future is going to go. So if you think back 3 years before this whole thing exploded, wasn't a problem at all. Then it turned into, yes, but they're not very good. Now it's actually they're quite good. And the forecasts that I read about the final production of super intelligence, so it's an AI that could outperform any human in any cognitive task, has been pulled from 2040 to 2035 to 2030 to soon, which is concerning. So I don't have a great answer about how to future-proof yourself. If I were a student, what I would be doing, though, is trying to make sure that being able to use a number of these things fitted in with my general non-academic skill set, much like you might use Excel or SPSS or Word or something similar. This needs to sit in with those skills, because you are likely to be out-competed in some way if you're not as good at as using them as somebody else. So that's probably the first thing. I have no idea which jobs and careers are the most likely to be threatened. Likewise, I can't even begin to imagine what new careers could be spawned out of doing this. And it's the same with most technologies. Sure, some things will go away, but at the same time, there are other opportunities that present themselves. So I don't have a great answer to the question, and I think it's a very valid concern.
But I think it's an honest one, and I think that's something we don't get a lot of in this debate. Because you've mentioned the idea that, yeah, some jobs will go, but also some jobs will be created, and you've likened it to tools. And I think that's an important element, that, there were certain roles that have gone the way of all things because their time was up. Something came in, something, replaced them that was easier, more cost effective. I think when we pretend that we can see the future, I think that's the dangerous thing, where we say, this is the perfect career, this won't get replaced. There is no way of guessing, but preparing yourself, understanding how they work, I think that's a really important point to make. So I thank you for that.
I think, and I also like, Lee, what you mentioned, that you need to use different AI tools and be competent with those, just like we use Word, Excel, and other tools. They will just add to the jobs we do. So I don't see that jobs necessarily will disappear. Certainly some will disappear, but our jobs will be enhanced in different ways. And maybe, not maybe, but will be definitely more efficient and hopefully more productive after that.
The research around it's quite interesting. There was some work done on the impact of particularly generative AI within industries, and there's quite a good study done about IT help desks, which is relatively scripted and formulated. And the output of that was inexperienced help desk operatives or agents were very much helped by AI. However, experienced ones were downgraded in their performance by using AI. They'd be faster, more accurate, and have better quality just using their years of experience. So the only way you can get experience is by experiencing things, but it's having that wider experience, which is going to be, I think, key to different things. And Shiv, you mentioned about career swapping. That's gone on a long time. I'm a casualty of it. So I'm a chartered accountant, and now I'm an academic. So there's that career swapping does happen, but it's still that experience you bring with you is extremely valid. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 years into a career or just starting on a career. You still have life experience to that point you can bring to bear.
Perspectives as well. You have an understanding culturally of a certain element. So everything you do brings a value to it. And I think that's important for the people listening, watching this podcast to be aware of and to consider. Definitely.
But that's another challenge for employers then. If we're relying on AI plus years of experience, how will fresh graduates ensure they have that experience?
It's probably been the problem forever in careers, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Because
is.
you look at the job application, it says must have experience, but you can't get
Yeah,
experience until you've
exactly.
got the job. So until you get your break, you're a little bit stuck on it. I think my other concern is the use of AI by potential employers, both to screen incoming CVs and applications. And also, I was reading that there are some potential employers that use an AI generated avatar to actually do the interview, which I don't like at all. I think there's ethical questions around that. I don't really agree with the AI screening of CVs. There's certain elements which are good because you can remove bias based upon any kind of demographic you like, which is difficult for a human to do. But at the same time, it misses that human nuance that we tend to look at when we're looking at CVs and things.
I guess also as well, there is unconscious bias when we're creating by the avatar and the prompts that are used for the questions. So
Yep.
there are certain things that are unconsciously screening people and experiences out. So I think that's another dilemma that I worry about with AI. Who is creating the prompts? Who is creating the AI?
Yeah, and the fundamental question, which I keep asking myself all the time, is this real? And I'm not always convinced it is when I see video clips and read text and comments and all that kind of thing.
We start getting more critical of what information we receive actually. Is it authentic or generated?
Well, and that probably is a good thing, actually. And if that's something that university graduates should be gathering wherever they are, is the ability to question and to critically think and say, can that be right? That's exactly the mindset that we're all about, and many other institutions are as well. So the questioning, I think, is a good thing, and the more that people do question, the better.
But does AI damage the critical thinking? Because if people are using AI as a research tool, are they always analysing the output from AI? Because I've worked with students who've just asked AI a question and just uploaded it without kind of questioning, well, yeah, a computer can generate this, but you're taking everything from the internet, and then not everything on the internet is true or accurate. So if you don't kind of question, you use those like your own critical thinking skills in the longer term, are you damaging those?
Quite possibly, yes. It was a relatively small study, but Microsoft and MIT did some work earlier this year, which was I'll dig the links out so you can put them in the chat for these papers. And they took some students and some they said, here's an essay question, use whatever AI you like as much as you like to answer it. There's others they used, I find this amusing, old school, feel free to use Google. And then there's really, really, really old school, here's a library and a pen. And the students who had the better recall and the better understanding were unsurprisingly those with a pen, because they had to engage with it far more. But what was interesting is when they flipped the sample round for a different question, the people who'd done the AI first of all really, really struggled going to the concept of a pen or something similar, or just back to Google, whereas the other two are in a much better position to question the AI. It wasn't a huge sample. It was a really, really interesting paper. And that does concern me. And you see it as well. The Anthropic, who make the Claude AI, they did quite a good study looking at incoming queries to Claude from .edu and .ac domains. So it could be colleagues, could be professional services, could be students, we don't know, but they're from there. And a couple of things stood out for me with that. One was it was being used far more for higher thinking skills than for what is, so define this, show me this, describe that. It was more at the analyze, design level. And the other thing was that students, which they assume they're students, had a tendency just to get the AI to talk them through. So it's what you've just said. I'm going to drop the answer in. And even though I'm getting it to explain its reasoning, I've actually put all of my thinking into the AI. Now, this isn't particularly a new problem. So back in the 14th century, when I was a student, the equivalent would have been that I just flip to the answers at the back of the textbook and read the answer and go, yeah, I'd have done that. And there's no cognition at all on my behalf. They're essentially doing the same thing. So you're not getting that processing and consolidating happen. You'll forget it really quickly. And that's back to an ethical choice by the student, really, about why am I here? Am I here to gain knowledge and do things, or am I just here to sit and copy paste for a few years or months or however long they're with us for? And I would hope the former.
It's that thing, isn't it? It's the factory approach. Am I here just to pass the test at the end and get the certificate, or am I here to develop and grow?
But how can we educate students to change their approach and look more ethically on how I use AI? Because they will be using it. But I feel our responsibility is really its ethical use of AI, but we need to do it at every stage in their student journey and onwards. What can we do?
There's a lot which comes, but it comes back to us. There is a sort of joint responsibility. The student is obviously responsible for their own actions and inactions, but we can encourage the right sort of behaviour, and that's difficult for us to do. What we can. So, for example, my area is sort of accountancy and finance. And what I've been doing is looking at, in the world of accountancy and finance, what are the professionals doing? So to do that, I can go to my professional body. They've got lots of information about this sort of stuff. From there, I can build in, this is how this is being used into the module. So you encourage the students to use it in an authentic way. And because I can sit with them while doing it, I can understand that they can do it. So when they come to do the assessment, as long as they tell me what they've done with an AI, that's okay. If I want to make sure they can do it, I can do an exam or something similar with either of them, that's fine. But it's thinking that assessment is only one part of the whole educational journey, and it's a much smaller part of why students are here. So it's on us to think about, across this whole time that they spend with us, how do we get this built in properly, and therefore how do we have a suitable assessment? And in some cases that may be a sterile exam, Viva style assessments. In others it may well be, it's fine, we're comfortable, you can do this, just tell us what you're up to and move that into the assessment. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think we also need to be a lot clearer explaining expectations to students. And I wrote, together with many colleagues, the current university guidance on AI, and speaking to students, they're still confused about it, which means I need to go back and revisit that, and colleagues are quite confused about it as well. And that confusion leads to all sorts of problems. So the students who want to hide their use of AI, thinking they're doing something wrong when they probably aren't, and because they're hiding it, it suddenly makes them look really nefarious when it's quite obvious that they've used it. And it's not really where we want to be. I'd much rather that students were open about it, just like we're open with students. We don't use AI to mark, or if we did, we'd have to tell them. And we don't use AI detection software, we would tell them if we did, and all that kind of thing. So that transparency needs to run both ways. And around that, I think there's a cultural wrapper, which is, here at Warwick, we don't cheat. It's just not what we do. And part of that is looking at the way that AI is used. And on the ethical side, there's various conversations about where has the information in this model come from? So quite a few of the models have taken copyrighted material, which we can't really do as educators. We can use bits of it and we can refer students on and everything else, but I couldn't just, copy and paste an entire book or something into a Moodle site for students. That'd be a bit naughty. An awful lot of them are trained by humans, so it'll be you may have even taken part in this yourself without realizing it, but when you've clicked on a find the traffic light or the bicycle or the bridge or the zebra crossing in one of those catchpers, you're probably training an AI somewhere, so it's a bit of free labor. There are other people who have been paid a ridiculously low amount to keep feeding this sort of thing in and checking stuff, which is ethically dubious. The power consumption of these things is beyond belief. And because there's a lot of power, it needs a lot of cooling. That involves a lot of water. And water is, it's a fundamental life resource and it's quite scarce, as we know in the UK at the moment. So that's a worry. Now, students, I think, get this. So this is an anecdote. It's not evidence, but this is an anecdote. I was in one of the cafes and I could hear a couple of students chatting behind me, and one of them admonished the other one for using ChatGPT for a really simple query. And I forgot what the query was. It was something like, find a Pizza Hut near me. And the other student was saying, do you know how much electricity that's used? Why didn't you just Google it and it gave you the answers? So that thinking is there. It's great.
Surprising that that does go on. I was actually in a careers forum where a student actually stood up and said, "This is ridiculous. We should be telling people to moderate their use of AI because of the amount of energy and water that it's actually using." And that becomes another issue for us to consider.
I think the awareness of this is quite broad and has good impact already, because even yesterday when I spoke to my mom, she said, "Oh, you know what? I'm not going to use AI because it uses too much energy. I'll stick to my Google. I don't need AI." And I'm like, "Oh, good idea." But I think the students we work with, in alumni we work with, they're very driven to keep the environment, to take sustainable action. So I have positive vibes around that. I think that this message is landing well.
Yeah, I think the sustainability issue is probably one of the biggest threats to it. But then you have a two-tier system with those that care and those that don't care about the environment. And
And it's the same with AIs as
Mhm.
well, which is a concern from a student experience point of view, that if we're encouraging them to use it, not all AIs are equal. And on the whole, the ones that you pay money for are going to be a bit better than the free at point of delivery ones, which is not equitable for students. And the university does not have the resource to buy ChatGPT or the full fat Copilot license or Claude licenses for everybody, which is unfair. So we either need to start specifying models, but there's issues with using the free at point of use models, because if you're not paying for something in some way, you will be the product. So it's taking your personal data and your interactions and using that to build the model a bit further.
Is there an AI tool that you or tools that you would say, not recommend perhaps, but say, well, I use this?
For all university work, I only use the Copilot within the university systems, and that's purely for data protection. Because but I don't tend to use them as a chat bot particularly. So, for example, we've just had quite a big survey come in with hundreds and hundreds of free-form comments, and in years gone by, I would have to read all of those. And there's two issues. First of all, I get bored. And secondly, my cognitive bias is I'm looking for negative comments. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's the problem? Whereas dumping that into an AI, it'll read it in 20 seconds or something. It'll give me some really good themes. Then I can go digging with it. So that tends to be how I use them rather than a chatbot. And it's partially out of habit that I'm just used to Googling stuff rather than using an AI, partially because of the sustainability things, and partially because I kind of know what it is I'm looking for. I'm not starting from a zero base when I'm doing it.
I guess my next question is going to be around how do you feel about academics in group works using AI as another member of the team to give peer feedback?
If if it's disclosed and done responsibly, that's the difficult word to decide where responsibly sits. I'm reasonably comfortable with students using it. However, I don't believe an AI in any form could replace academic judgment over an academic opinion that someone is trying to display. Using the AI to either make language more appropriate or more accessible or something similar, I'm all for that. I think that's a great idea. Using it to actually grade somebody, not particularly comfortable with that, because again, it lacks that human input, and the AI won't really have worked with that person. It's down to other people if they're doing some kind of peer grading. If they're using it as another team member to help design slides or find content or whatever it happens to be, provided it's transparently dealt with, that I don't, unless the person running the module says you absolutely must not use AI, then I don't have a huge problem with that. But grading, particularly where there is some kind of academic judgment, I'm uncomfortable with it.
I think a lot of us would be uncomfortable with the grading aspect, but the kind of exploring and researching, and sometimes if you can create prompts that get the AI to sort of question the student to say, well, what's important about this to you? And then sort of helping them to sort of pick through. I guess my issue has been, I've discovered recently that predominantly amongst international students, there's a large use of ChatGPT for careers questions. And again, this is the free to access one. I know that if I ask Claude a question, every now and again it will pop up with something that is really bizarre, and I will go, Claude, you're wrong. And it'll go, oh, I'm really sorry, I've had an hallucination, which always tickles me because I just think that's such a funny phrase to say, oh, I've just spouted absolute rubbish. But I think that's concerning me because it goes back to that question where obviously it's searching through the whole of the internet. One of the areas it's searching through is TikTok. And the people creating these TikToks are not guidance professionals. They're not people with a lot of experience.
And they can even be bad actors of some form or another.
Exactly. And so my concern with that professionally is not so much that it's doing me out of a job, but it's presenting information to somebody who can make a choice not based on the reality. I mean, there's a phrase, well-informed, realistic career decision, that when you're training is sort of hammered home to you. But it's a phrase that's hammered home because it's rooted in everything positive in career guidance. So if these bad actors, whether they're deliberately bad actors or just unthinking bad actors, the danger there is there's a lot of information that is floating around there that could be putting people off from doing things like internships, building work experience, things like that.
But students do tend to come back to the in-person guidance or coaching session. I know lots of the students I work with, they use AI. They use AI really to do mock interviews, to design questions, and I think AI is really strong on that. It gets really good questions. But after that, they want the feedback from a person, and that's where you can start. So I do rely back on our students to take responsibility and to take their ethical decisions and critical thinking, saying, okay, I use AI to this extent, but from there on, I know that I need to check the information. I need an academic or a professional to confirm my views and where I'm going next, or just soundboard with the person.
I think that's true for say a PhD or a master's student. I think for people coming into HE, it isn't always the case. And sometimes they're put off making choices. I can't remember the piece of research, I will look for it. But there were a lot of people who, there's a generation of TikTokers who are offering career guidance based on a
Yes, and
limited,
I've seen that. I know, I've
irrelevant
seen those. And
knowledge.
yeah, and my daughters often quote, TikTok said that, or I read this on TikTok. But that's, again, this whole society responsibility is to check those views and keep saying, is this true? Have you checked elsewhere?
Yeah, multiple sources of information. Remember that.
It is overload, but that's a difficult thing to do. But however, it's luxury. And that links to my next question. And I was thinking, and I said it in the notes, is that my understanding is that AI, we fit information to AI. But now I know a pharmaceutical startup, for example, they create their AI agent and they don't let any data escape. So I think more and more organizations are going to do this. So in my mind, is AI will be outdated at some point, because if everyone is protecting their knowledge and what new knowledge they generate, so how can we ensure it's accessible still and it's current? Or what can we expect that, or how will this develop in the future?
I genuinely don't know. Again, that's a really good question. The issue over access to training data has been going on for a while, with some authors in the US taking AI companies to court. And I think Taylor Swift was in the news earlier for the way some AI thing has dealt with her and all that. Those are all protected things. And I wouldn't particularly want an AI training on my medical records that it could link back to me or anything similar. So that there has to be a balance. But that's quite an interesting thought, of the more that it wants, the more that everybody tries to protect, which actually is counterproductive for general human knowledge. But I totally get that. As a pharma company, your whole dependence is your intellectual property. And if you drop it into an AI, it's no longer easy to protect. It's just out there. I don't know is the answer. It's a really interesting question to pose.
Audio books that at the very end, with the copyright declaration, there's also this cannot be used by AI in any form. And that's quite a new step. About 3 different authors I've come across that have put that caveat
I would
in.
imagine most AI companies would just ignore that, and they'd say, "Oh, the AI didn't spot it." I don't know. I would imagine that it's going to be something you can pop in there, but it's because the previous one must not be used or added to any retrieval system or something. I've forgotten what it was, but that would have covered it. But that doesn't appear to have had that much of an effect.
I think it
So
was the last
I
Stuart
don't know.
McConey book that particularly stood out to me, and he very explicitly says this cannot be used by AI in any way, shape, or form. I take ownership of as the author, blah blah blah, and it goes in there. But it's true, as you say. I mean, is that going to end up as a court case?
No idea.
Okay.
Proving it could be quite difficult, but
Yeah, this is the joy of AI, isn't it? I'm conscious of the time. Constantine, do you have another question that you want to ask Lee?
No, I think probably the last one is just reflecting on what we've learned so far from AI. And Lee, for you, what has been the most significant lessons of your use of AI as a academic researcher, as a human?
I think the big one is everything changes far faster than you would expect, even if you expect it to change really quickly. And just watching the rapidity with which models that I've used have been unable to answer some of the questions that we set, and eventually learned how to do it through, and it's been quite quick. It'll be like literally one iteration, and now it can do this. The reduction in hallucinations that we've seen, particularly around fake academic journals, that's almost fallen off a cliff. So they must be doing some checking somewhere. That's significantly improved. And as I said, this ever closening horizon of a super intelligence of some form, that's probably the biggest thing. Reflections from a human point of view. Again, there's some work being done on this. Different age groups use these things a little bit differently. And again, all generalizations are false, but it would seem to be that younger users tend to use it almost more as a friend. So it's someone that they chat to and might get careers advice from, or dating advice from, or whatever it is that they want, rather than asking a friend. Whereas people more in my age group use it much as I do. It's a straight analysis tool, or if I'm really struggling to formulate a proper Google search, I can just do it in natural language in whatever. So I tend to use it more, I know what I'm looking for, rather than a companion. The companion thing does concern me. And I was watching an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and he came, I'm assuming the stats right, but he said that the average American only has 3 friends. He wants the Meta AI to be their 4th friend. And that quite disturbed me, that's almost pulling people away from genuine human relationships. And these things, when you chat to them, they are almost relentlessly positive about everything. And I haven't tried this as an experiment, but I did wonder, if I've got this great idea about murdering kittens, what sort of sack do I need? And asked it. But that's a great comment, Lee. What I really want, whether it come back with something really positive about it or not. So that might be a thing to try later, assuming it doesn't phone the police on me.
My cats are getting their motorbike ready, and they'll be coming around here. Yeah.
But it's this relentlessly positive thing. And part of human relationships is that you agree with your friends, you disagree with your friends, and that's life. And that's part of that, is forming a well-rounded character, that you are your own person. You are comfortable disagreeing with people, or comfortable having people disagree with you. It's not this relentless sycophantic positivity, which I think could be quite dangerous. And I think the other thing that I've kind of learnt or noticed is that where I've had colleagues still in practice, they've gone with an AI for a bit and then thought, initially this is really cool, and I used it for everything, and now it's driving me nuts because it takes me longer to write an email if this darn thing has interfered. Whenever I come to do my PowerPoint slides, it's busy trying to rearrange stuff, and I don't want it like that. So that they've kind of moved away from it, or just stopped using it, except for these reasonably chunky data exercises or relatively mundane tasks which don't require a chat type thing. It's about, if a person's got this query, shunt them over here. That sort of almost decision tree led thing, which takes the human out of the loop because they're not needed there. But for productivity, they sort of moved away from them a bit for a lot of the cool things that they can do to get over this initial excitement of it. I'm sure there's some people who use it fantastically all day, every day, but just speaking to colleagues who've played with it, it said, no, it wasn't worth the 20 quid a month or whatever these things cost.
It's a lot of money.
It's interesting insight. Yeah, it is, but I haven't had time to spend so much to design an agent, although I want an agent to organize my emails and block times in my diary. I have the workflow in my mind, but haven't had the skills to design the agent yet.
Agents are just fantastic, but very few of us have access to the agent, I forgot what it's called, the agent building data lake thing that comes with the Microsoft products that we have. There's a few projects we'd really like to do, but finding time to get someone to build the agent, though, takes some time. And one of those is things like the Warwick website, which is a mess. Trying to find anything on there is next to impossible. So sorting that out, to find contradictions, to find unlinked bits which don't go there, and just cleaning it up would be a huge thing to do. No human could do it. You'd be there to the end of time, whereas an agent would, I don't know, go through it overnight or something similar. Say, right, here's your map of everything. Enjoy.
I think all university search boxes are like that. I know most people use Google to find the page.
Yeah. Use the Slack function in Google. It's just bizarre. It's and I think it's because it's been there for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, however long it's been there, and that we'll have this bit and this bit and this bit and this bit and this bit.
Yeah, that's great. So I think these are all my questions, Shiv.
Yes.
Final one.
I have no other questions to ask. I just think it's been a very interesting conversation around AI. And obviously, there's no definitive, because tomorrow something else will come along, and the day after that something else will come along. But I think it's a very interesting area, and I think it's something that a lot of people are scared of, in equal measure of being really excited by.
Yep.
So I think we'll come back to you on this one.
Oh, you'd be more than happy to pop along and chat again. Do a retrospective in a few months or something. See what I managed to guess right and what I got guess totally wrong.
Yeah, we could have
That's a good one, yeah.
mystically.
You said.
Mystically, this will happen in AI.
We can replay the video. Lee said, and how about now?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time, Lee,
Yes.
and for great input. It was amazing.
Very
Thank you.
interesting.
You are most welcome.